Live from the Student Union on campus, this is Gold Mine Live. Your weekly all-access pass inside Charlotte Athletics is brought to you by Ortho Carolina. Proud to present the 2018 Charlotte 49ers football season. Bojangles, it's bow time. Harris Teeter, where 49ers fans shop for groceries. University Eye Associates. Excellence is eye care. And by Wells Fargo. Charlotte 49er fans, show your pride with a customized Wells Fargo debit card. Stop by your nearest Wells Fargo or visit Wells Fargo Car Design Studio online to learn more. Now, here's your host, the voice of the 49ers, Matt Swearad.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gold Mine Live here at the Rotunda in the Student Union as we get ready for Week 3 of Niner football. The first conference game of the season coming up this Saturday. Might be a wet one, but we'll see what happens as the Monarchs of Old Dominion come to town. And good to see head coach Brad Lambert again. Coach, good to see you.
Good to be here. Good to see you, Matt.
And, that big car of Al's, you finally got it parked. You were circling the parking lot for a while. Al, good to see you.
Good to be here.
I got to turn your mic on. There you go.
Good to be here.
All right. So we 2 weeks into the season now, Coach. It's already 2 weeks in. You're 1-1. The win against Fordham, the loss against App State this last Saturday. But before we break down the game a little bit, great atmosphere. Biggest crowd in the history of Jerry Richardson Stadium, 19,151. And that's the way college football should be.
Yeah, it was. We told our team all week there would be a great atmosphere. And, it was everything we thought it would be. And the fans were great. And it was a loud stadium. So it was an exciting time for our guys to take the field.
Good football team, the Mountaineers. Of course, they almost beat Penn State on the road the week before. You knew you had your hands full. And the things we talked about, speed, and not overly big in terms of size up front, but fast. And we saw that in the especially in the second half.
Yeah, no question. I thought they were a fast team coming in. I think no different coming out of the game. I thought the quarterback just played great. I mean, we couldn't get him off his rhythm. We did a pretty good job stopping the run. I was pleased with that. Jalen Moore's a fabulous back, and I knew we had to play well up front to stop the run. I thought we did a decent job of that. We just couldn't get a handle on the passing game. And then, the big play on the punt, was tough on us. We didn't cover it real well and had a guy miss a tackle. And so you got to make plays in the open field, and we call all those money downs. It's like being on third down on defense. Every kick is a money situation, so to speak, in its own right. So you have to play well in the kicking game, and we finally got a good punt. I thought Kyle did a pretty good job all day, but we just didn't cover it real well, and Hennigan got away from us.
That might have been one of Kyle Corbett's best overall punts in terms of length and even hang time. And unfortunately, it was returned. But, on the special teams going in, we were worried about Evans running kicks back. I thought Jonathan Cruz did a great job at just kicking the ball out of the end zone, keeping it out of Evans' hands.
Yeah, Jonathan had a great day. He's, hit 3 field goals for us, long field goals. His kickoffs were all in the back of the end zone. So he really kind of kept them at bay from that standpoint. I thought Jonathan had a great day. He continues to build on what he's doing game 2 for him as a true freshman. So excited for him and things that he's doing, and that really helps us.
Coach, you talked a lot about the environment. How big was it for this team to respond? I saw the defense come out with a lot of energy and swarm around and make some plays.
We did. I thought to start the game we played pretty good, and we moved the ball some. We just couldn't punch it in. You get down to red zone, you got to finish drives, and that was kind of the difference in the game. If we finish those drives early in the game and have a chance to, put 7 on the board instead of 3, that's just a huge difference, and we just didn't finish some drives down in there. But I thought our defense was humming pretty good. I didn't like the 2 drives right before the half. That was kind of a disheartening thing for us. It kind of got hot on us into the boundary over there, and we didn't adjust to it real well till after that series. But then we had a linebacker, run a wrong call on the one long pass that got on the next drive. So, we got to eliminate mental errors and continue to work on it. But I thought the guys were playing extremely hard.
And what about the game plan? We saw the 4-man front kind of go away. The 3 guys get up there. Tyreek Harris move back to a middle linebacker position. Was that part of what you saw on film, that you can attack this running game?
Yeah, Glenn, Glenn had done some of that at Oklahoma State against some of those offenses and had success, and I really liked it. So we went ahead and ran it a bunch during the game, and I thought it was good for stopping the run. We got messed up, on that one drive into the boundary. That's the one thing that got us messed up. And we played both packages, but we really liked that package, put Tyreek in the middle and let him run the A-gap. And I thought we had a chance against their stretch play that they run. That's kind of their staple. It's their number one run, and I thought we held up pretty good against it. The one run on 3rd and 6, the first third down of the game, we went with our speed package, and he went ahead and ran the stretch, and Foggy kind of got out of his gap a little bit. And, of course, Ben hit him late out of bounds, which you can't do. We had a couple 15-yard penalties that, we got to eliminate. Those are the penalties that really hurt you, is any kind of personal foul. You can't just give them 15 yards, especially a good offense. You're looking for trouble if you do that.
Going back even week 1, Coach, you put the 2 games together. It looks like the defense taking a big step on 3rd down. You guys getting off the field on 3rd down.
Yeah, I think so. It's been a huge point of emphasis for us. Even our offense, we converted some 3rd downs. I think that's been a huge point, and we've got to continue that track. We've got to do that so we can get our defense off the field so we don't run as many plays, and that's been a real point of emphasis for us, and I think they've handled it well so far. This group coming in, Old Dominion, they're really skilled at the wide receiver position. They're kind of like the group we just played. That's the strength of their football team, is their skill position. They got 3 or 4 seniors, got a senior running back. So we'll have to be on point again on 3rd down.
You look at time of possession, too, and you wanted to have the overall time advantage because you felt you wanted to have the football more, keep it out of their hands with the big plays. They had a couple of big plays you talked about, but overall able to shorten, especially in the first half. You're down 15 at halftime, just a couple of scores. You're in the game. Anything at that point can happen going forward. Didn't go the way you want in the second half, but certainly the time of possession kept you in the game.
It did. We're trying to be intentional about that as well, possess the ball. Part of that, too, was we gave up the punt return, so we didn't, they didn't have to play a drive. I mean, that's 5 first downs right there, 50 yards that they didn't have to run. So that skewed it a little bit. Whenever you give up a special team score like that, it takes a possession away. And, we threw the pick. But Chris made a great play down there on the goal line, and then we turned around and we just had a mess up down there in the end zone and gave up a touchdown when our defense wasn't on the field as well. We fumbled the exchange in the backfield, so we got to clean that stuff up. But Chris made an unbelievable play down there on the goal line after he threw the interception. He didn't hang his head. He didn't quit on the play. He went down there and hit the guy, and the guy fumbled it through the end zone, and we ended up getting the ball back. But we got to eliminate the plays where we're giving up points and our defense is not on the field.
Chris Reynolds, you're talking about quarterback. Boy, I'm not sure in our 6 years we've met a tougher kid. Maybe a little undersized, but he's a true football player, and you got to literally yank him to get him off the field.
Yeah, he got beat up pretty good Saturday. They were hitting him pretty good. He kept coming out of the game. One time his nose was bleeding. One time his arm was bleeding. A couple times they just knocked the air out of him. So he's a tough guy, and he needs to understand that he can't just throw the ball when he's getting sacked. Hey, if you get sacked, you get sacked, but you can't just throw the ball and get intentional groundings and things like that. So we got to keep working with him from that standpoint. He's a young guy, and he'll get better as we progress.
Yeah, how do you manage that, Coach, with a guy that's a competitor? That's part of being a competitor, where you want to make a play and telling him, hey, taking a sack sometimes is a win.
It is. You just gotta continually talk about it and understand that sometimes they're going to beat you, up front, and what we want him to do is stay in the pocket a little bit more. He's trying to jump out of there around the edges too much. And this week, the other strength of ODU's team is their defensive front. He won't be able to do that against O'Shane and these guys. They're pretty good on the edge. They're pretty good pushing interior. So we're going to have to be on time with our throwing game this week.
Well, to have 2 games under his belt like he has going into conference play, that is also really big. It's got the Old Dominion game coming up, of course, but now you got a full league slate, and he's got 2 games already under his belt. Yeah,
that's huge. He's just going to get better as we progress, and then we'll keep using Hassan like we did last Saturday. So he's into the game. We've got to try to get him to affect the game, and we wanted to do that. That was part of the plan going into App State, and we'll have to use that as going forward. And then if he does have to, because he had to stay in there, a couple times when Chris was coming out, so it keeps him into the game, and he's getting a lot of reps during the week at quarterback anyway. So it really helps Hassan as well to stay involved in the game.
Speaking of Hassan, he had one of those third down conversions you're talking about, a great 11-yard run that kept the drive going.
Yeah, he did. He's done that over the years for us, so we've got to continue to use him and use his package. I was a little disappointed on the fourth down play when we went for it down there. We didn't block it correctly. We missed a block in there, and so it really wasn't Hassan. He just didn't have anywhere to run.
All right, Coach, we'll take our first break on the show. Gold Mine Live. Special player guest coming up today is Ben DeLuca a little later in the show. A lot to talk about with the Old Dominion game coming up this Saturday. First conference game of the season. Niners take on ODU at 6 o'clock at Richardson Stadium. This is Gold Mine Live on the Charlotte IMG Sports Network.
It's the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event. There are only a few days left to take advantage of great deals like 0% financing for 60 months on the built Ford Tough F-150. So hurry and save big on Ford, America's best-selling brand.
During the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event, get 0 for 60 plus $2,800 bonus cash on select F-150s at your Carolina Ford dealer.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Gold Mine Live here at the Rotunda Student Union as we talk Niners football with head coach Brad Lambert and Al Wallace with us as well. The big game coming up this week is the first conference game of the season. It's Old Dominion. Before we get any further, a lot of folks kind of milling around here in the Student Union. If you've got a question for Coach or Ben DeLuca coming up later on, Tom Whitestone has some paper up front. You want to come up, write the question down, put your name down with the question. We'll pass it along and have Coach answer it during the show here today. We're here until 1 o'clock, so you get about 45 more minutes of the show here. So just come up, write your question down, and we will ask Coach that question. Well, Coach, coming out of the game against App, let's talk about health right now. And with the conference game coming up, you want to be as healthy as you possibly can. Where do we sit? I know you said after the game on the postgame show that Benny LeMay had a dinged-up shoulder. Yeah,
he did. I think he'll be okay. He had a sore shoulder, so we took him out there in the fourth quarter, just played the other guys. It's a long season, and so we want to make sure we've got Benny here going in the conference game. I think he'll be fine as we move forward.
Now, Tommy Doctor's probably going to be out for a while with his foot, and that certainly limits some of the depth that you had, but hopefully he'll come back later in the year.
He will be out for an extended period. It was nice to get Dan Trell back and Nick Martin. So we had those two back, which added some depth in our interior defensive line, which helped us. I thought Dan Trell, for his first action, did some good things in there. Nick Martin, was really coming on as a redshirt sophomore. Played last year a little bit. Has had a good offseason, a good summer. So he gives us a lot of good depth behind Tim Horn and Tyler Fain. So getting those two guys back was critical for us.
One player that dressed for pregame warm-ups but didn't play was R.J. Tyler, one of your tight ends, who's a big part of your offense. Flu symptoms, so he was not able to play. Hopefully he'll be okay this week.
Yeah, RJ's okay. He went through practice yesterday. He got the flu on Thursday, and you're trying to bring him back so he didn't practice Thursday or do his walkthrough on Friday. We just kept him away from the hotel, and then we actually gave him IV before the game, and we wanted to see him go through pregame warm-up to see if he could do it, and he just was too sick, so he didn't have the strength he needed, and his temperature had come down, but it was still, it wasn't smart to play him in the game. So we just took his pads from him and said, hey, don't worry about it.
And you look big picture, too, Al. You know this in the locker room. You want to make sure if one guy's sick, he doesn't pass it on to somebody else.
Yeah, that can happen. So that's why we just kept him away. We just let him stay at his apartment. We tried to keep fluids in him, and the doctors had seen him. So we did everything we could, but sometimes it's out of your control. A guy's sick, and we just didn't want the rest of the team to get sick. And we did try to go with him in pregame to see how he was feeling, and he just didn't feel well. So we just made a decision in pregame. Hey, look, don't worry about it.
We've seen the weather impact the games. First week, it's the lightning storms and delays. This week, just the humidity. We saw a couple guys go down, cramping.
Yeah, we had a couple guys cramp. Warpay, Cam Clark. After the halftime, we came out second half. We had a few issues with it, but I think we'll be okay moving forward. It was pretty humid out there Saturday night. Guys were pretty amped up, and I worried about that in pregame. Just how, because it's a big game, it's a huge environment, so you just worry about guys exerting too much energy in the pregame, and I think that's what happened to a couple of them.
And we don't know what the weather's going to be like this weekend with the looming hurricane on the East Coast right now. Hopefully it's not going to affect us too much and have some of those fans come back out with the first conference game. And, it is a big one with Old Dominion coming to town, and it is a conference rival, being one of the closest schools to our school in league play.
Yeah, no doubt. And, speaking of weather, ODU and FIU last weekend down in Suffolk, Virginia, down in Norfolk, they had a 2-hour lightning delay at the half, so they played the first half and they had to stay in the locker room for 2 hours, and they came back out. They were playing real late. They're kind of like our first game, had the big delay in there, so they had to deal with it last week. Looks like we're all going to have to figure out how to deal with it this week. Of course, Mike Hill and the chancellor and their staff, they'll figure it out. Part of the problems ODU getting here, depending on where the hurricane would hit. We had to deal with it a couple of years ago going down to FAU, so it takes a lot of work by a lot of people to get the logistics of it correct. And I know in the FAU situation a couple of years ago for us, everybody they did a really nice job of handling it. It's hard on our football ops people because all the unknown factors, because you might have to play on Sunday and different things. But you got to do what's best for the players and the fans both. Make sure everybody's safe.
Well, it's great for you. You got a lot of great people around you that will handle that. You guys can focus on the football, and you might, though, have some wet practices this week.
Yeah, it looks like it. And, it's probably going to be pretty similar to the Temple game we played a couple years ago where the hurricane came in. We got all the ramifications of that, and the game was extremely wet. It rained hard that night when we played Temple here, and we just were worried about that the whole time. But the kids responded well, and so you just got to go out and work in the rain. And as long as you don't have lightning, it's okay. You can go out and practice. You can go out and play. It's always the lightning that creates the problem for you.
I remember the FAU game a couple of years, actually 3 years ago at this place, where it was a really rainy night too, and it was a game where the Niners came back late in the second half, and really about maybe a foot and a half of space between the football and Austin Duke, and a touchdown that might have been a difference in maybe the first conference win at that time.
Yeah, that was a huge play. If it was about a yard too far, and but it was an extremely wet night that night as well. I think that was our first conference game here in Jerry Richardson. So. You just have to deal with the elements. That's the great thing about football. You play out in the elements and let's go to work. But the guys just got to adjust, and you practice that way. You use a wet ball in practice, and so the guys get used to handling it. And I think that's the key.
One of the things we haven't talked about was how the offense bounced back late in the half, and you got that third field goal where it could have been a deflating situation where they marched down and scored quickly, App State, but a great kickoff return by McAllister, and gives you a chance. Then Jonathan Cruz hits the third field goal. That had to have been an uplifting moment going into halftime.
It was huge because we gave up the drive before that, so it was huge to the kickoff return. I thought it was interesting. When you watch games across the country right now, it's interesting to see how people are handling the kickoff return. Like, we're just returning them unless they go in the end zone, and App State started kind of doing a sky kick over to see if we were going to fair catch them, and AMAC, went ahead and caught it and brought it and had a big return, and that's where it all started. You get the big return right before the half, then you got time to, play a couple of plays and give Jonathan a chance at a long field goal, and he hit one from 54, and all of them were over 40. So he really had a big night for us, and that was huge for us to get points right before the half.
You talking about AMAC and putting McAllister back there at the returner, how much strategy is involved with putting a bigger body back there? It's a little harder to tackle a big guy.
It is, and he'd had success last year, so we went with him over Cam this week because he'd had success, a little more experience, bigger guy, and he's just kind of used to the environment, so that's why I went with it, because I knew it was going to be a pretty big environment. I wanted an older guy that had done it. So AMAC responded well for us. We got to continue to work on that team because guys, they don't always kick it out of the end zone. We were fortunate that Jonathan did on our side, but you got to continue to work on that return game and try to get an advantage in the hidden yardage. We came out 10 yards short on the hidden yardage package with that punt return we gave up. So, you're always trying to win that battle within the game.
Take our next time out, Coach. Give you a break. We got junior defensive back Ben DeLuca standing by. He's going to come up here and talk a little Niner football with us with a big game coming up this week against Old Dominion, first conference game of the season. That's coming up next. This is Gold Mine Live on the Charlotte IMG Sports Network.
It's the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event. There are only a few days left to take advantage of great deals like 0% financing for 60 months on the built Ford Tough F-150. So hurry and save big on Ford, America's best-selling brand.
During the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event, get 0 for 60 plus $2,800 bonus cash on select F-150s at your Carolina Ford dealer.
The Student Athlete of the Week, sponsored by Ortho Carolina, the official team physician of your Charlotte 49ers.
This week's Ortho Carolina Student Athlete of the Week is Colin Montgomery. Montgomery is a senior defender on the men's soccer team from Victoria, British Columbia. He came into the 2018 season with big expectations after being named the Conference USA Preseason Defensive Player of the Year and was a first-team All-Conference team member and a COSIDA Academic All-American in 2017. Away from the field, he's a biology major with a 3.97 GPA and has been named to the Chancellor's List all 6 of his semesters with the 49ers. Colin Montgomery, the Ortho Carolina Student Athlete of the Week.
This has been the Ortho Carolina Student Athlete of the Week, brought to you by Ortho Carolina, the official team physician of your Charlotte 49ers.
Welcome back to Gold Mine Live here at the Rotunda Student Union. Matt Swarad with Al Wallace and joined now by junior defensive back Ben DeLuca out of Orlando, Florida. Ben, always good to see you. Hope you're doing well today.
Yes, sir. Good to be here.
Well, Monday is your day off. You don't have to practice, but I know you for the last 2 years being, I guess, the football version of a basketball gym rat. You're always watching tape. You're always doing something. So what are you going to be doing here today?
Well, I just got out of class, so I'm probably going to go eat some lunch, and then I'm going to go watch some film with some of the safeties and try to catch up on some recovery. So ice tub, and then probably get in the boots and, try to get my legs back under me.
Well, you guys, physical game on Saturday. What was that like? Talk about coming out to get your body ready to go for next week. It must have been it was an exciting game in terms of the first time you play App State and the rivalry factor. But it was a physical game too, so you want to get that recovery going.
Yeah, it was definitely a physical game. Like you said, it was a unique experience getting to play Appalachian State, creating those rivalries and getting to play them here at home was getting to fill the stadium. It was a cool experience. Well,
being from Orlando, you and I have talked about this in the past, but high school football in Florida, that's at the next level. These programs down there, they take it pretty seriously. You sit next to Al Wallace, who Delray Beach, the east coast of Florida. Talk about, the love of football, how it came about playing in high school.
Well, playing at Bishop Moore under Coach Hedrick, it's a pretty tight-knit culture that we've really created. And so I transferred there my sophomore year, and we kind of started to build it. I had a lot of kids that I grew up with since I played Little League that we kind of all transferred together with the goal in mind that we wanted to win a state championship. And so when we all transferred there, Bishop Moore was a known program. Like, they're always very successful, but they never were, a state powerhouse. And so our goal was, how do we really get them over the hump? And my sophomore year, we lost in the first round of the playoffs. And then my junior year, we weren't expected to be that much better, and we ended up losing in the state semifinals to American Heritage. And so that kind of really, told us that we belong and that was a possibility for us. And so senior year coming back, we had a lot of experience in the back end, and we were able to win the state championship. So I was really fortunate to be a part of that team.
Ben, how important is it for you and the secondary guys to be run supporters? You've made a ton of tackles here in your career. I know your coaches probably emphasized your ability, your skill set to come down and make tackles inside the box.
That's something that we really key on since I've been here, that we really hope, the safeties, both the free and the strong safety, are part of the run game. And so, our coaches just throughout the week, Coach Adams, he tries to really emphasize getting a clear run-pass read and trusting your keys. So whatever your key is for the week, reading that. And when you get the run-pass read, trust what you see. And if it's a run read, to get involved in the run game. So we really emphasize getting clean reads, clean eyes, and then trusting our eyes to make the play.
You came here with Robert Cheatham, who was one of your high school teammates down in Orlando. And is that still, you talked a moment ago about, taking that next step from your junior season to your senior season, winning a championship, and now you're a junior here. He's a redshirt sophomore, but you guys talk amongst yourselves and teammates about taking that next step now as you're in your third year, and you got this year and one more year of football to try and get this program to that next level?
Right, yeah, that's definitely something that tough for Rob because, he tore his ACL in camp. So we've been able to speak, but he hasn't been able to be as impactful as he'd want to be firsthand. But we've really spoken about that. Coming in now is my junior season, and I've played against most of these teams and most of these players that we're playing against. So there's a lot of familiarity in that. And so, that is something that we've really focused on is how do we take the next step. We've been on the winning side of close games. We've been on the losing side of close games. We've done a lot. So I think experience is really big. We've got a lot of guys on the team now that came in with me that played as true freshmen, and a lot of guys that redshirted and played that are in my class. So that's something that we've really talked about is we've had a lot of guys play here, and we have a lot of experience, more so than even our class. A lot of juniors, they may have played a little bit, but we have guys who have played 3 seasons now coming into the season. So we've really focused on what do we need to do to impact the program and to take the next step, accomplishing the mission.
Well, coming into the season, named to one of the preseason all-conference lists, which has to make you feel really good about what you're doing so far in your first couple of years here, and teams are starting to take notice of your talent. You had the fumble recovery against App this last weekend. That's now 5, ties the school record. You're always around the football. Tell us about you and stripping footballs and finding a way to get that loose ball.
Well, the goal is always to give the ball back to the offense and, to steal the opportunity for them. And this one wasn't really, I can't take credit for it. I was actually talking to Denzel and Tyreek. They were arguing over who forced the fumble, and we were watching on tape, and we couldn't really tell. But I was chasing, and I was in pursuit, and I was trying to get there to make the tackle, and the ball came loose. And so I was just fortunate enough to be around the ball to fall on it, like you said. So the goal is always to get 11 hats to the ball, no matter where it is. And I just try to, pursue to the ball, and then when I get there, if you're the first in, you have to secure the tackle, and the second in, strip the ball. That's something that we really focused on. And so that's been a point of emphasis that I've tried to work on.
Ben, talk about Coach Spencer and this defense. It looks a lot different. You guys are swarming to the ball. You have multiple fronts. Sometimes it's a 3-man, sometimes it's a 4-man. Talk about what he's brought to this unit.
Coach Spencer's he's brought a lot. Coach Spencer, he's a really experienced coach, being at Oklahoma State for 8 years, and he has experience as the head coach, and he's one of the smartest coaches I've been around. He understands how to make adjustments. We're never just staying in one thing. He's always thinking ahead and putting in things for possible games down the line, and he's really changed the program. He, like you said, he's like a point of emphasis has been getting around the ball, and something you always can control is your attitude and your effort, and that's something that in the past we haven't really controlled the controllables as well as we should have. And that's something that he's focused on, like running to the ball. That doesn't take any talent, and so he's trying to make sure that we control the things that take no talent. Aligning, trying to do your assignment, running to the ball, second in, strip. Those aren't things that require talent. That's just something that you have to focus on, and really just trying to hone in on those skills.
Still 10 games left, a lot of the season left. You're going to conference play this week at Old Dominion. Talk about this matchup a little bit. It's early in the week, but I know you've watched a little bit of film, and you remember the last year it was a game. It was 6-0 at their place. A couple of years before that, we had a chance to win at their place as well. It's a game I know you guys really want to get. What are some of the challenges against Old Dominion?
Well, their quarterback, he's a dual threat, and whenever you play a quarterback that presents both those opportunities, that's something that you have to always key on. And the running back, Jeremy Cox, I believe he's a senior, so he's played a lot of football. And we've got to play him the past few years, and he's a really experienced player. And they got some experience at receiver. So the key is really just executing this week. The coaches are going to put us in position, and we just have to execute. They have a lot of great players. We have a lot of great players. And, the games have gotten away from us with Old Dominion. We haven't got a chance to beat them yet. So that's always the goal, is to go in and play a sound game fundamentally and win the game. So our goal is to just do what the coaches ask us to do, to execute, and to do what we need to do to win our first conference game at home this season and start conference play out right.
Ben, thanks so much. Really enjoyed the visit. Always love talking to you and love watching you play. Have a great game against Old Dominion. We'll talk to you again down the road.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.
That's Ben DeLuca, Niners junior defensive back from Orlando, Florida. Back with more with Coach Lambert as we continue with Goldmine Live here at the Student Union. Coming up next, the Charlotte IMG Sports Network.
It's the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event. There are only a few days left to take advantage of great deals like 0% financing for 60 months on the built Ford Tough F-150. So hurry and save big on Ford, America's best-selling brand.
During the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event, get 0 for 60 plus $2,800 bonus cash on select F-150s at your Carolina Ford dealer.
Welcome back to Gold Mine Live here at the Student Union. Matt Swarad with Al Wallace and head coach Brad Lambert. Want to thank Ben DeLuca for taking some time out of his Monday to come and visit. And, Coach, it's always I really enjoy talking to Ben, one of the great guys on this team. Openly friendly and loves football, just loves the game of football.
Yeah, he really does. He's easy to coach, that's for sure. He loves playing, he loves practicing, he loves watching video, and he handles himself off the field. So he's really easy to coach, but he's a lot of fun to be around too, because he's always asking questions. He wants to get better, and how can he help the team become better, and how can he become a better player, and so that's always the fun part.
And it's fun to watch these young men grow up as they come here as freshmen. He was really quiet when he came here. And if you went to talk to him, if you sat down and talked to him, he'd talk to you, but he's not going to seek you out. And now you see the growth as he's just out there promoting this program.
Yeah, no doubt. He was a guy that came here. He was a little bit shy, but now he's, he loves the game so much, and he enjoys playing it so much that, he's willing to put himself out there and ask questions and engage with people. So it's been fun. It's a lot of fun for us to watch them all mature and grow as they go through college, and then of course you got to see them leave. But it's a lot of fun.
Well, we asked the crowd here if you had a question for Coach Lambert, come up and write it down. We'll ask the question. So we still have about 20 minutes left to show. If you have a question, please do come up, write it down, and we will ask Coach Lambert. This question comes from Philip. He's a sophomore. And Coach, talking about maybe bad weather this week, how do you prepare your team to play in bad weather?
Yeah, well, what you have to do is we'll take a couple days, and we'll just take 3 or 4 footballs and put them in a 5-gallon bucket of water, and we just soak the footballs all day. And then, because what happens is the football becomes a lot heavier, and so exchanges with the running backs, throwing the ball for a quarterback, it's a little bit more difficult, especially when you're trying to push the ball down the field. So that's how we do it. We do it a couple times, in camp, and then, I did it for the first game because I wasn't sure if we were going to get weather. And then we'll do it again this week just because we know it's probably going to be wet on Saturday. And so that's how you do it. You just and then if it rains this week, we'll just go out and practice in it. So it kind of takes care of itself. As long as we don't have the lightning, it's usually not an issue. And dealing with delays and things like that, we kind of get practice at it because it happens to us at practice. So we'll try to practice at 4:30, and it happened a couple times during August. We had to come in, wait in the locker room, then go back out. So that's kind of a way that you can practice your delay stuff so the guys get used to it. But the biggest thing is just making the ball wet and heavy so they get used to handling it.
That's interesting because, in baseball, you throw the ball out when it gets wet. They probably go through 20 dozen baseballs during a rainy type of situation. You don't do that in football. You try to keep it as dry as you can, but that ball, once it gets wet, it's going to be in play wet.
It is. You'll see the referees have towels over it. You'll see the managers trying to dry them out. But, they approve like 12 balls before the game. The officials approve them, and that's what's in the bag. So you try to, save some of them maybe for the second half. But, once the ball's in play, it's in play, and it's going to get wet, depending on how hard it is. Like we've talked about some games in the past we played with Temple and FAU. You just got to play with a wet ball. That's the way it is.
Coach, how does that change your game planning on the offensive side of the ball? I mean, it really forces you to somewhat be one-dimensional without the ability to throw it down the field.
It can really change the game, because you can't throw it as deep anymore. So the thing I always worry about is the exchanges between quarterbacks and running backs, and making sure that we handle the ball okay from that standpoint. But it's really difficult to throw the ball, from that standpoint. The nice thing is we play on turf, so you don't have to worry about the footing issue that sometimes you would on a grass field. Guys will lose their footing, and it's a little bit harder on the defensive guys because, the offensive guys know where they're going. The defensive guys are always reacting, so it can be a little bit difficult. So we don't have that issue. The other issue that could come up this weekend that sometimes comes into play is the wind. That can force some decisions, whether you're kicking off or you want to take the wind, because that's an option for for a guy at the beginning of the game. You know, when you grow up in Kansas and you play at Kansas State, sometimes the wind dictated whether you took the ball or kicked off. So you just want to pick the quarter that you want the wind at your back. So that'll be the other piece this weekend with the Hurricanes. Sometimes the wind gets to blow a little bit on you, so we'll have to see from that standpoint.
And you talked about practice with the wet ball. Jonathan Cruz, your kicker.
Yeah.
Last week, fantastic. Hopefully later today when those weekly awards comes out, maybe his name will be on it. But he was fantastic. He's 5 for 6. He's got the big leg, hit 54 yards on Saturday, which is 2 yards short of the school record, but the freshman record for the program. But how does that change? The ball gets heavy. It's like kicking a rock. I mean,
it is.
You said 35-yard line might be your cut point, but that might change in a windy, wet situation.
It is. All those exchanges really become difficult when you're snapping and holding, when you're punting the ball. The punter's got to catch the ball first, and then, your punt returner, he's got to deal with it, in the elements and fielding the ball. So all that becomes much more difficult. So you probably got to be a little bit closer before you kick field goals. So, you'll probably go for it more. And, but all those exchanges become magnified when the ball gets wet and gets heavy and it's raining and everybody's, trying to handle it.
Rain's the great equalizer. It's going to happen for both sides. You both got to deal with it. So
it is.
We'll see what happens this week with Old Dominion coming for the conference opener, 6 o'clock on Saturday. We've got a couple of breaks to take still before the show's over, so let's get one in right now. Come back with more with Coach Lambert. This is Gold Mine Live on the Charlotte IMG Sports Network.
It's the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event. There are only a few days left to take advantage of great deals like 0% financing for 60 months on the built Ford Tough F-150. So hurry and save big on Ford, America's best-selling brand.
During the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event, get 0 for 60 plus $2,800 bonus cash on select F-150s at your Carolina Ford dealer.
Welcome back, everybody. Gold Mine Live here at the Student Union. We're here until 1 o'clock with Niners head coach Brad Lambert getting ready for week 3 already. The Niners take on Old Dominion at 6 o'clock on Saturday. And it's here at home, 3 straight home games. And then the Niners will be on the road for a little bit. Coach, it's the last of the night home games, too. So we get the last one on the lights. It'll be the late afternoon games the rest of the season for the Niners going forward. And the defense we talked about has been playing pretty well and led by Alex Highsmith. Let's talk about Alex a little bit and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, what a great story. That guy, walked on here and just has earned everything he's gotten, man. He's playing at a high level for us right now and playing extremely hard. He just being very productive for us over the last, however many games. But he's really playing well and just – his daily work ethic. I mean, he's another guy like Ben. I mean, he's always in the office. He's trying to, become a better player each day. And I've just been really proud of him. And he's being productive for us and, getting lost yardage plays and tackles. And there was a play I showed the whole team on yesterday. I showed the whole football team. There's a play into the third quarter. I mean, it's a phenomenal play. I mean, the guy, he doesn't look at the scoreboard. He just plays, and you can't have enough of those guys. And we got a good number of them, but Alex is leading the way for us.
Coach, I know you know this better than we do, but there's such great character on this roster. And the guys that I've been able to meet, they love the game. How important is that to the culture and the guys that you'll be bringing in,
Huge.
for years to come?
It's huge. I mean, you want to bring the right guys in, guys that are going to represent the university in a first-class manner. And that kind of, we've got a good group of those guys, and they've done a good job of that. And we need to continue on that track. But that's the kind of people you want to be around every day. It's fun to come to work, and it's easy to go coach these guys because they will go work and they don't check up. They do everything you ask, and that's been real important.
And you mentioned, Alex a moment ago, playing, not looking at the scoreboard, just playing to play. And, we saw that late in the game, too, the fumble down around the goal line. Guys still playing, going after the ball. And, yes, they're not going to win the game, but there's a lot of season left. They're trying to get better.
That's right. And that's the key is that, we're playing one play at a time, and I'm always trying to get better and create lost yardage plays and get turnovers and put the ball in the end zone. So really proud of the guys. And this week we got to come out with that same attitude and show up with a great attitude, great effort, and, try to cut down on our mistakes and go win this game.
Looking at going forward, too, in league play, we're talking about it in the postgame show on Saturday. It's been 2 games, but I'm telling you, I really think this offense is going to score some points this year. This is going to be a fun offense to watch. Victor Tucker, we just talked about him during the timeout. Just a freshman, what he brings to this offense, that great catch on the sideline, a couple of great third down catches that he had for you. This offense, as they get more time together, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, he's been a huge compliment to Warpay, that's for sure. Warpay's had another big play for us, and he's got to continue that. Vic's made some big catches Saturday on third down, just, really, really critical catches, because that's the difference in extending a drive and getting 3 more plays and keeping your defense off the field versus having to punt the ball. And so, like I said, we've made a big deal of that. But the guy that we know hopefully we can get more involved in the offense is Mark Quattlebaum. We need to try to get him more involved and let him make some plays for us as well, because he's a good receiver. We've got to keep utilizing Benny and Amac and from that standpoint. But I think they're continuing to work together, and I think that'll as we move through this thing, it'll continue to grow, and hopefully we'll put some points on the board.
Rico Arnold, Cameron Bent, a lot of those guys saw snaps this week. How valuable is that experience for them?
It's good. It's good to get those guys in the game. They've got to just continue to get game reps, and whether it be special teams or offense. So we've got to continue to utilize those guys, all those young guys, get them in the game, and keep building depth as we build this thing.
Those are 2 guys that he just mentioned with Quattlebaum that have some extra speed. These guys are your fastest guys.
Yeah, they are, and we're trying to utilize them as much as we can, and we're trying to get them in the game. But I like where Vic is, and I like where Warpay are right now. They're producing, and we got to continue to get them the ball and feed off of, keeping our tight ends involved. Chris Phillips, those guys from a blocking standpoint, get them out in the route some. But we've got to be able to run the ball and then play off of that.
Aaron McAllister started running for you guys last year, had that big game against Western Kentucky, but you've seen him take that next step forward now. This last week, he had some great hard runs in the second half.
He does. He continues to grow as a running back, and then, of course, we talked about we utilized him on the kickoff return. So we got to continue to keep him in the game and keep him involved, because you don't want just one guy getting 30 reps, 30 carries. So we try to split those reps up. We got to keep Amac in the game. He's a big back that has been productive for us.
You've gone 2 and 3 deep, though, at your running back position. Calvin Camp, of course, is a guy you converted to running back during camp earlier this year. And tell us about him and what he brings, but also Keyshawn McGow and what he does.
Yeah, those 2 guys have really given us added depth. Keyshawn came to us from Butler Community College and got a little dinged up the other night. So we'll see how he is this week as we progress. Calvin's been a guy that's been productive for us. I didn't like that exchange in the end zone down there between he and Hassan, but he's kind of a slasher. He's a little bit different pace than the other guys, and really good out of the backfield. So I thought he did a nice job the other night. He keeps producing and keeps coming along. So it's good to have that depth.
Take our last time out on the show, Coach. Come back and talk a little bit about Old Dominion. Of course, the team coming up here to play on Saturday. Game time 6 o'clock. Again, go to charlotte49ers.com for ticket information, or call them at 704-687-4949. 6 o'clock on Saturday at Richardson Stadium against Old Dominion. Back with more with Coach Lambert coming up next on the Charlotte IMG Sports Network.
It's the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event. There are only a few days left to take advantage of great deals like 0% financing for 60 months on the built Ford Tough F-150. So hurry and save big on Ford, America's best-selling brand.
During the final days of the Ford Summer Sales Event, get 0 for 60 plus $2,800 bonus cash on select F-150s at your Carolina Ford dealer.
Welcome back to Gold Mine Live with Al Wallace and Coach Lambert. I'm Matt Swart. Thanks for tuning in this week. Don't forget, our next show is 1 week from today. And before that, we have the game with the Old Dominion coming up Saturday, 6 o'clock at Jerry Richardson Stadium. And Old Dominion coming off their first conference game. They played one in week 2 last week at home against FIU. And the Panthers knocked off ODU 28-20. In that game, Coach, you had talked about the delay at halftime, 2 hours because of lightning at the stadium on campus in Norfolk. And then the second half, it was FIU scoring 14, a couple of touchdowns, and they shut out the Monarchs and won that game.
They did, and they had 2 huge drives. They had one from like 86 yards, was like a 19-play drive, and then they came back and had a 99-yard drive. So they really took the ball away from them in the third quarter, scored twice, got up, and then ODU just couldn't. They had some pretty good field position in the second half, just couldn't get the ball in the end zone. So and ODU came out like a house of fire. They were up 17-0 before they, right out of the gate. So they're really good at wide receiver. Duhart's back. He missed most of last year. He's a big play guy for him. He had one from 80, I think. He was a fast guy. We've played against him before. They've got senior wide receivers that, are really pretty similar to what we just played in App State. And then their defensive front I think's got a chance, probably the best in our league. They're really good up front. O'Shane Zimenez he's as good as there is rushing the passer. I mean, he's got, I don't know how many sacks, but all across the board, their front four, I really have a lot of respect for them. They can make it difficult on you running the ball and throwing the ball. So we're going to have to really, neutralize the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball, and try to find a way to move the ball on these guys up front.
They also utilize a multiple quarterback situation with Williams and LaRussa. And, we've seen in the past, you go there expecting one guy to play and somebody else does and throw a little wrinkle at us. So we'll see what happens this weekend. Yeah,
Coach Wilder's used both of them in the two games this year. And they're both playing pretty good for them. They've moved the ball. They throw it around. Steven's a little bit more athletic. He can give you all the zone read stuff, so he has the ability to make plays running the ball, so he's a little more difficult. But Russa, he's a very, very accurate passer. He's done a good job, through these two games moving the ball. He played a little bit against us last year down there. He started the game maybe, I think, and threw the ball well. So we'll have to prepare for both of those guys, but it all starts with their wide receivers, man. Their running back. He's a senior. I mean, they've got good skilled guys like we faced last week. So that'll be the chores, keeping those guys in check and not giving up a big play.
And if it is a rain situation, you expect to see him run the ball more. And Cox, their main back, he's not running for big numbers, like a 3.7 average per carry. What's he been like so far when you've seen his tape early?
Well, he's put on a little weight this year, so he's pretty big. He's a big physical guy, and a lot of times the first guy can't get him on the ground. So you're going to have to really chase the ball and get everybody to the ball and gang tackle this guy because he's big. Their offensive line's big. They got a big physical offensive line, so we're going to have 11 guys at the ball, pursuing it, chasing it, being on point, keeping the quarterback in check on the zone read stuff. And then they'll RPO you, they'll throw some things off the run game, and that's what they'll hit that slant in behind you, and Duhart can get away from you.
It's just been a small sample size, just 2 weeks into the season, but looking across the conference landscape, you may have one or two teams that kind of separate themselves to the top of the league, but it looks like right now, if all these first couple of games are what we're going to see going forward, it's a wide open season.
Yeah, you never know, because like ODU's different, and they played one non-conference, and then they got two conference games. Like Western Kentucky had to go to Wisconsin and play. So some of it can be a little deceiving because you don't know, FAU had to go play at Oklahoma. I mean, those are tough places to go play. So, some people are playing FCS schools, some are playing Power Fives. It's kind of sprinkled all over the place. So once we really get into conference play, you'll start to see some things unfold.
Yeah. How important is it, Coach? You went at Fordham, App State, you take a loss, but now you're in the conference play. Does kids get more amped up for that?
It's huge. That's, your whole goal is to win your division, and so it all starts on Saturday for us. Try to get to 1-0, in conference play, and it's a big game and familiar with these guys. We've played them 3 or 4 times now, and so it's critical that we come out and play well. We've been right there at the edge with ODU and didn't finish, so we got to find a way to do that and get our first conference win.
Plus, it's the final of these first 3 home games to start the season. You'd love to go to UMass, we'll have double in your back pocket.
Yeah, no doubt. You'd much rather go up there 2-1, that's for sure. Give yourself a chance, but we just got to take care of business one day at a time. That's been our thing with our football team all year, and they've done a good job of preparing and working. We've got to go out and minimize mistakes, make sure we know what we're doing, and make sure we tackle well, and make sure we take care of the ball on the other side of it. Those 4 categories, blocking and tackling. We talk to the guys a lot about fundamental football. It won't ever change, and you got to be good tacklers.
one more point on the ODU game. You talked about, the wide receivers, Isaiah Harper being one. He's also returning kicks.
Yeah.
There's a guy that you got to make sure on a wet field you make that tackle, because if he slips one, he could be gone.
Yeah, they do a really nice job in their return game, their punt return, kickoff return. He even had a punt return last week, so they're utilizing him some as a punt returner. He's a dynamic guy in the open field, and they use him on offense. They try to get him the ball in the open field with some screen stuff and hand it to him, and he's a tough guy to bring down, so we got to make sure we're on point from that standpoint.
Coach, always enjoy it every Monday. Thanks so much for your time here today. Have a great week getting ready for Old Dominion.
You got to appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it.
That's going to wrap it up for us, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in here this week. And again, we're right back here every Monday in the Student Union at 12 noon with Gold Mine Live. So I want to thank Al Wallace and Coach Lambert. Ben DeLuca joined us today as well. And back in the studio, Kyle Schaaf's doing a great job running the board. I'm Matt Swear. Don't forget, coming up on Saturday, game time is 6:04. The Niners take on Old Dominion at Richardson Stadium. It all starts with the kickoff show at 4 o'clock on 7:30 the game, ESPN Charlotte. Our pregame in the booth at 5 o'clock, and we'll kick it off at 6:04. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning in. And so long from Gold Mine Live.